Hey everybody, Josh Peck here. We're doing something a little different today. I've actually come across some new research that frankly I don't know what to do with, so I figured I'd put it out there, what I have now, and I'm interested to hear your feedback and what you guys think about this. This isn't something that I've heard before, though this information isn't unique to me. I've drawn off of other researchers as well, but putting this together is it has been strange. Now, before getting too heavy into this video, I feel that I must assure the viewer and the audience out there that this is not a presentation of predictions. Rather, it's more of a presentation of possibilities. There are things, some of which included here, that we should absolutely keep our eye on. There are things history can teach us as we move forward into the future. Time itself is a straight line, yet events seem to be cyclical. Events don't always happen in the same way every time, yet there is usually enough commonality to give us a fair warning of what may lay ahead. It's also difficult to pin down an exact date or even an exact year most times on any possibility of prophecy that isn't clearly laid out in Scripture. But in short, we may not know the day of certain things, but we might be able to discern the season. Now, in researching for an exciting new upcoming project with Tom Horn, which at least for now it's too early to disclose too much about, this repeating anomaly kept coming up, and my current research is going in a direction that would not normally lead to this type of thing, but there it was, time and time again. So much so, in fact, that I began to feel it shouldn't be ignored. I even went as far as to ask Tom and other researcher friends of mine if anything similar was coming up in their various fields of research. And time again, the answer was yes. Yet when dates start coming up, it's difficult to know exactly how to present the information or to decide or how to decide even if to present it at all to the public. Now, speaking for myself, I would never want to lead someone to believe that I have a special revelation of anything, if there's even the slightest chance that it could all just be coincidence. Therefore, I'd ask the audience and going forward to keep in mind that what I'm presenting here, it's merely possibilities. It's not predictions. I do stand behind my research, of course, and I believe that what's presented here could happen. However, something entirely different or nothing at all might happen instead. So I'll go through my evidence to show why I believe certain things in the coming year are possible, yet ultimately it's up to the viewer to decide for his or herself. Now, if you're brand new to this channel, if you don't know anything about me, my name is Josh Peck. I am a researcher of quantum physics and ancient texts. I've written a number of books, Quantum Creation, Cherubim Chariots, Abaddon Ascending, and others. All my information is in the description below. I probably should mention, too, that late March, early April of this year, I will be speaking at the Hear the Watchman conference. And if you're interested, and if you're going to be in the Dallas, Texas area, if you're interested in coming and meeting me and the other researchers involved, you can get your tickets at the description below. If you put the promo code PEC in there, you'll get a discount on your tickets. Anyway, so that's a brief background of me. And as I said before, this came up in researching for a new project. Now, prophecy in itself is a tricky thing, and interpreting Bible prophecy, deciphering possible hidden meanings in the text and applying it to our current time, it provides ample room for mistakes or miscalculations and really just outright incorrect speculations. We see it all the time on social media. For example, how many times has YouTube or Facebook told us that a comet was going to hit the Earth imminently, or that NASA has said that we're going to experience an extended time of total darkness across the planet? I'm sure all of you out there have experienced that and have seen those memes and fake articles. Now, how many times have Bible verses even been used to support those claims, only to be proved wrong time and time again? Then after a few months, a new threat to the world and humanity comes up. And it seems that we go through this cycle from various clickbait articles every couple of months or so. Now, of course, I'm not saying that there will never be a time of literal darkness or a time when something will collide with the earth. Even Bible prophecy seems to say that those things will happen someday, but I don't believe that there's any evidence to suggest that that will happen without other prophecies needing to be fulfilled first. So the main point is we all, and myself included, we all need to be careful with so-called prophecies on social media and other areas of our modern world. It's far too easy to be led astray these days with these things. So all that being said, I absolutely do believe prophecy is real and it is being fulfilled in our day. And I do believe major things are happening. And if we pay attention, we'll have a better chance of being prepared for what's ahead. Now, this doesn't only include physical preparedness, but mental, emotional, and spiritual preparedness as well. So in short, it's not about what we may know, it's about how we use it. So I've come across this surprising and really obscure connection. There seems to be something strange looming between the years 2017 and 2018. And of course, it could be easy to say, well, all past generations have had things like that, and every year it seems there's other things coming up. But again, these are just what I'm presenting here is just a possibility, but I think there's more concrete reason to believe something. And I'm not talking about the end of the world or anything like that. This isn't, it's not anything nearly that dramatic, but it's still something I think important. Now, one piece of this puzzle actually came when I was reading the extraordinary book, What Dwells Beyond, the Bible Believer's Handbook to Understanding Life in the Universe, by an amazingly talented researcher, Jeffrey W. Martis. And actually, here's a little bit of Skywatch and Defender trivia. If you're a fan of Skywatch TV, and if you've ever bought anything from Defender Publishing, Jeffrey, he's not only a phenomenal researcher, he's also the talent behind many of Defender Publishing's book covers. In fact, he was the one who designed the cover to Abaddon Ascending, which is the newest book by Tom Horn and myself. Jeffrey's truly a talented individual in all respects. In chapter 2 of What Dwells Beyond, Martis makes a very interesting connection. He actually shows how certain significant events in Israel's history seems to correspond to events that reignite the idea of alien life elsewhere in the universe. For example, in approximately 600 BC, Nebuchadnezzar burned Jerusalem to the ground. And at the same time, a curious belief called cosmic pluralism began in the world. Now, cosmic pluralism is a term that's used to describe the existence or the belief of the existence of more than one inhabited planet, usually hundreds or millions of planets that are populated with intelligent life. Now, in 70 AD, Rome burned Jerusalem to the ground, and in that same year, the famous philosopher Plutarch wrote this in his On the Face and the Moon. He wrote, "The men on the moon, if they do exist, are slight of body and capable of being nourished." Now, what makes this specific quote so important is that Plutarch was the last major philosopher to seriously comment on cosmic pluralism before it was revived later in the Middle Ages. Now, there was a third major connection between cosmic plurality and major events in Israel. Modern ufology and the rise of aliens in the public mind in modern times, it began in 1947 with the UFO crash of Roswell, New Mexico. Now, 1 year later, in 1948, Israel became a nation again. Now, as Martis admits in his book, this could all be coincidence. Jeffrey Martis nor I would want to claim a connection exists if there's none to be seen. However, it does seem odd that these two subjects in history, noteworthy events in Israel's history and cosmic plurality, something that reignites in the world the belief in extraterrestrials, they seem to correspond. It's really strange. Now, there are connections today that are actually stronger and more numerous. And there are a lot of these, but I'm only going to go through a few in this video because you only really need a few to make the point. And also, if you couldn't tell, I'm fighting off a cold, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, but as we enter into the beginning of 2017, we're reminded of a major event in Israel's history. 100 years ago, in 1917, the Balfour Declaration was written. The Balfour Declaration was a letter dated November 2nd, 1917, from Arthur James Balfour, who was United Kingdom's foreign secretary, to Walter Rothschild, a leader of the British Jewish community, for transmission to the Zionist Federation of Great Britain and Ireland. Now, strangely enough, at this time during World War I, there were numerous reports of UFOs from soldiers on all battlefronts. In fact, it was even reported the German pilot Manfred Freyer, or better known as the Red Baron, he actually believed he shot down a UFO over Belgium in the spring of 1917, and books have actually been written about that. The Balfour Declaration was actually not the first step in efforts toward establishing a home for the Jewish people. In 1897, which would be 120 years ago from this year, from 2017, the first Zionist Congress was held in Basel, Switzerland, by Theodor Herzl, the founder of the modern Zionist movement, and the Basel Declaration was submitted. It was stated, and this is a direct quote, "Zionism seeks to establish a home for the Jewish people in Palestine, secured under public law." Okay, so the new program, which came to be known as the Basel Program, was adopted under the following terms. And here's an actual quote from the document. "Zionism aims at establishing for the Jewish people a publicly and legally assured home in Palestine. For the attainment of this purpose, the Congress considers the following means serviceable. 1, the promotion of the settlement of Jewish agriculturists, artisans, and tradesmen in Palestine. 2, the federation of all Jews in local or general groups according to the laws of the various countries. 3, the strengthening of the Jewish feeling and consciousness. 4, preparatory steps for the attainment of those governmental grants which are necessary to the achievement of the Zionist purpose." Okay, so during the same year occurred possibly the most famous UFO incident besides Roswell, and this was actually before Roswell. Keep in mind, this was 1897. The Aurora UFO incident reportedly happened on April 17th, 1897. Now, locals claim that a UFO crashed on a farm near Aurora, Texas, and is claimed to have resulted in the death of the alien craft's pilot. Now, the alien's body is allegedly buried in an unmarked grave at the local cemetery. Anybody with even a small amount of UFO history will be aware of this because it's very famous. And you can even just look it up on YouTube. You can look any of these up on YouTube. Documentaries have been made about these. So it's really interesting history. But again, we have that correlation between a major event in Israel's history and a major UFO occurrence. Now, a bit more recently, in 1977, Menachem Begin became the prime minister of Israel, and in 1978 he signed the Camp David peace accords with Egyptian President Anwar Sadat. Now, this was facilitated by President Jimmy Carter. The Camp David peace accords, it's really rich in history of what it did to/for Israel, Egypt, America, and other nations. It really was a major turning point in Israel's history. And there can be a lot more found out online about that, but I don't want to get too much into that because there's other things to talk about. Now, oddly, 1977 and 1978 were also really important years in modern ufology. The government of Brazil has released declassified security files pertaining to Operation Saucer, which was a top secret investigation by the Força Aérea Brasileira into the 1977 UFO flap in the northern state of Pará. Now, beginning in October of 1977 and lasting through the first half of 1978, the city of Colares of the Brazilian state of Pará underwent extreme UFO and alien activity, even to the point that it was called an actual UFO invasion by the newspaper O Liberal. And you can actually look that up too. Now, this is known as the Colares UFO flap. Now, to recap, the first major attempt to make Israel a home for the Jewish people occurred 120 years ago, which is the same time as the Aurora UFO incident. Now, 100 years ago, the Balfour Declaration was submitted, which was when the Red Baron believed he shot down a UFO. 70 years ago, in 1947, was the UFO crash of Roswell, and around that same time, in 1948, Israel became a nation again. Now, adding to all this, 50 years ago from 2017 was the Six-Day War, or the Third Arab-Israeli War of 1967, in which Israel defended against the invading armies of surrounding nations. It was a very significant point in Israel's history, but strangely enough, at that same time was the most intensive and long-lasting UFO sighting wave of all time. And that was actually documented by NICAP. It was actually, the 1967 UFO chronology, the mother of all sighting waves, NICAP's massive 85-page chronology of UFO incidents and events for 1967. And you can actually find that at NICAP's website, which is nicap.org. So taking all this into account, the years 2017 to 2018 seem to have a lot of significant anniversaries of Israel/UFO history, all converging. The 120th year anniversary, the 100th year anniversary, the 70th year anniversary. There's a 40-year anniversary and a 50 and 40-year anniversary. So there's 5 major ones. There's actually a lot more. There's dozens and dozens of these, but I just picked the 5 most major for this. Now, a strange thing actually comes up when we consider these numbers through a biblical or an ancient textual context. Now, in the words of Jesus Christ from Matthew 24:32 through 34, it states, "Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled." Now, it's widely believed within biblical eschatology that the fig tree is a representation of Israel. And this also leads us to wonder how long, according to the Bible, is a generation. Of course, there's been a ton of studies on that, a bunch of commentaries, so I won't spend a whole bunch of time there, but there are a few different possibilities. But even more, there are other number and time cycles that seem to correspond with this type of study. Now, the first that we could look at is 120 years. In Genesis 6:3, God said, "My spirit shall not always strive with man, but for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Now, a popular interpretation of this says that God was referring to the flood. It's believed that he was saying he would not always put up with what was going on in the world, but he would for only another 120 years. So it would be then when God would send the flood. Now we can look at 100 years. So that's 120 years. So we can look at 100 years. In Genesis 15:13 through 16, God tells Abram that his descendants will be afflicted for 400 years in a land that's not their own, which turned out to be Egypt. And it then says that in the 4th generation, they shall return to their own land. So in this instance, to know how long a generation is in this context, we only have to divide 400 years by 4 generations, and then we're left with a generation equaling 100 years. Again, and that's just in this context. So that gives us 100 years. Now the next one is 70 years. Now Psalm 90, verse 10 says, "The days of our lives are 70 years, and if by reason of strength they are 80 years, yet their boast is only labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away." Now, some have interpreted this to mean one candidate for a biblical generation is 70 years, or possibly even 80. So that gives us our 70 years. So next is 50 years. Leviticus 25, 8 through 17 tells us about the 7 cycles of 7 years, or 49 years, and the Jubilee year, which is the 50th year in ancient Israel. The Jubilee year is basically a big reset button. The land was not to be sown nor reaped. Slaves and prisoners were freed, and debts were forgiven. Lastly, we can look at 40 years. There were a lot of significant things at point concerning to a period of 40 years, but more specifically, we can consider the words of the Lord in Psalm 95:10, which says, 40 years long I was grieved with this generation, and said, it is a people that do err in their heart, and they have not known my ways. So this points back to the 40-year wandering in the wilderness of Moses and the children of Israel. Numbers 32:13 states, and the Lord's anger was kindled against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of the Lord was consumed. Now, we can put it all together. The odd thing with all these numbers and cycles, of which there are many others, but just for the purposes of this video, I want to keep it brief, and the ones that we talked about here will suffice. But the odd thing is we can trace back every single one of these through Israel's history and see significant simultaneous events concerning UFOs in Israel, leading us again to the years 2017 to 2018. Excuse me. So 120 years ago, which was 1897, we have the Aurora UFO incident, and then we also have the first Zionist Congress. 100 years ago, in 1917, we have the Red Baron UFO, and we also have the Balfour Declaration. And keep in mind, the UFO incidents that I'm mentioning here are one of many in these specific time frames. Now, 70 years ago, somewhere between 1947 and 1948, we have the Roswell UFO crash, and we also have Israel becoming a nation again. 50 years ago, in 1967, we have the largest UFO wave, and NICAP's big 85-page report attests to that. And then we also have Israel defending Jerusalem in the Six-Day War. Now, 40 years ago, between 1977 and 1978, we have the Caleres UFO flap, and then we also have Camp David peace accords. Now, as stated earlier, there are more curious dates involving biblical year cycles, the history of Israel, and the UFO phenomenon promoting the idea of cosmic plurality. However, just for this video, this is enough to get the point across. And also, given the fact that Israel operates on a slightly different calendar than we do, especially when you look through the lens of the Bible, it's a different calendar than we do here in America at this time. Pinpointing events down to the exact date or even year can prove nearly impossible. Sometimes what is the next year for us is not the next year according to a biblical calendar. So while we might not know the exact date and year with future things like this, there does seem to be evidence to support a significant span of time, somewhere between the years of 2017 and 2018. Now, all these things and more seem to be pointing to these years, 2017 and 2018, as a significant time in the near future. And it would seem, if history repeats itself, and it may not, this might not be anything. This might just all be coincidence, and maybe nothing happens. But if history repeats itself, we might see a major event in Israel, while at the same time see a major event, again, promoting the idea of cosmic plurality. Now, what this might be, one can only speculate. Could it be a war igniting in the Middle East involving Israel? Could an official disclosure event of UFO knowledge from the government occur? Might there be another major UFO sighting or something even bigger? Again, we can only speculate, and that's all I can do. Again, as I said in the beginning of this video, my purpose is for doing this video, it's not to convince you, the audience, of anything. My purpose is to present you with information and possible connections, all of which, admittedly, could be a series of fantastic coincidences. But allow you to dig into the research further and make up your own mind about what it all means, if anything. Now, at the very least, it's a good idea to be prepared just in case, because it is better to be prepared and not need it than to be unprepared and desperately need to have been. So I am interested to know what everybody thinks about this. Usually, excuse me, usually I do make time to ask questions from the live audience. I see that there's a lot in the live chat right now, and I do appreciate all of you. But as you can tell, I am dealing with just a horrible cold, and I don't want to talk any more than I have to. But that's also why we didn't continue on with Steve Quayle's book, Empire Beneath the Ice, in this video. If I'm feeling better next weekend, we'll do that. But yeah, this cold, I don't want to talk any more than I have to. But again, most important thing to take away from all this, it's not a prediction. It's not a prophecy. This is just Josh Peck speaking, of what I think might be something to keep our eyes on, and that's it. It's something that has the potential to be vitally important, but it also has the potential to be nothing at all. So I don't know as of right now, but I also would not, if something does happen in the next year or two, if there is a major UFO sighting, or if Israel does get engaged in some kind of war or something even bigger than that, I don't want to regret saying nothing, for fear that somebody might misinterpret what I'm trying to do. So again, I'm not trying to prophesy. I'm not predicting anything. This is just possibilities. These are connections that might exist, might not. So I am interested to know what you think. And if you could leave a comment in the video below, let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any more evidence, either supporting or refuting this. If you have evidence refuting it, I'd love to see that too. But now, again, I am going to be speaking in Dallas between the end of March, beginning of April for the Hear the Watchman conference. I'm still putting a lot of prayer into what my presentation might be, but I'm getting a strong feeling, and again, I don't know if it's anything, but that this might have to be a part of it. So if so, by that time I'll have a lot more research, but if you're interested in going, you can check the link below. And please also, for all the praying and believing Christians that are watching, keep myself, my wife, and our kids in prayer. We're all dealing with this horrible cold or flu or whatever. We don't know what it is, but for me, it's been about 6 weeks since I've had it. Now it's been on and off, but it seems like I get a day or two of reprieve, and then it comes back again. So not sure what it is. We're doing all sorts of all natural remedies to take care of it. So I do appreciate people who want to give their suggestions on how to knock this stuff out. But I promise, whatever you suggest, it's stuff that we're already doing. My wife is very much into all that. So we're doing all that. But I want to thank you all for keeping us in prayer, and for keeping the whole Skywatch TV crew in prayer. For those of you who haven't heard, Joe Artis Horn, who's Tom's son, he's the CEO of Skywatch. He underwent surgery just recently, but he came out of it fine, and he's doing great. So thank you all who've kept him in prayer. Please continue to do so. And but yeah, thank you so much again, everybody, for joining me in this discussion. And again, I'd love to know what you all think, what your gut feeling's telling you, what the evidence is showing you. If there's anything that I missed in this video that you think I should include in future videos, or whatever. Anything that you want to say, you can leave in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Share this and like it as well. All right. All that being said, as always, take care and God bless.